The USS Abraham Lincoln has been hit. Say that again. For the first time in the modern era, an American nuclear aircraft carrier, the centerpiece of U.S. military power, has been struck in combat. For decades, the carrier was considered untouchable, the ultimate symbol of American deterrence. But now, missiles and drones have done something no adversary has accomplished since World War II. And the question shaking military planners around the world tonight is simple. What happens when the carrier gets hit? For decades, the aircraft carrier has stood at the center of American military power. A floating airbase capable of launching dozens of fighter jets, projecting force across oceans, and shaping conflicts thousands of kilometers from U.S. shores. In naval strategy, few symbols carry more weight than a carrier strike group moving into a contested region. But now, reports from the Persian Gulf have sent shockwaves through military command centers around the world. According to early accounts, the USS Abraham Lincoln, one of the United States Navy's most powerful aircraft carriers, was struck by a combination of missiles and drones during operations in the Gulf. If confirmed, the implications are enormous. Since the end of the Second World War, no American supercarrier has been successfully hit in combat. For more than 70 years, these massive warships have operated under the assumption that their layered defenses, fighter patrols, missile interceptors, radar systems, and escort ships could keep them out of reach. That assumption may now be under challenge. Within minutes of the reports emerging, naval analysts began examining what the strike might mean for the future of carrier warfare. Because aircraft carriers are not just military assets, they are the centerpiece of how the United States projects power around the world. And if even one of them can be successfully targeted, it raises a question that strategists have avoided for generations. What happens when the most powerful warships ever built are no longer untouchable? To understand why the reported strike matters so much, you first have to understand what an aircraft carrier actually represents. A carrier is not simply a warship. It is a floating military base capable of launching fighter jets, surveillance aircraft, and strike missions anywhere in the world's oceans without relying on foreign airfields. With its air wing and escort vessels, a carrier strike group can project power thousands of kilometers from American shores. This capability forms the backbone of the United States' global military posture. Today, the United States operates 11 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, more than the rest of the world's navies combined. These ships allow Washington to respond rapidly to crisis, support allies, and maintain a constant presence in key strategic regions. Where a carrier sails, American influence follows. But their importance is not purely military. Aircraft carriers also serve as symbols of security guarantees. For many allied nations, the arrival of a U.S. carrier strike group represents a visible commitment that the United States is prepared to defend its partners and maintain stability in the region. This is why the credibility of deterrence is closely tied to the perception that these ships are nearly impossible to defeat. If that perception begins to weaken, the consequences extend far beyond a single battle. They reach into the foundations of the global security system built around American naval power. But behind the steel hull and advanced weapon systems, an aircraft carrier is also something else. It is a community of nearly 5,000 people. Sailors, pilots, engineers, technicians, and officers all live and work aboard ships like the USS Abraham Lincoln, operating what is essentially a floating city in the middle of the ocean. Every day, thousands of individuals coordinate complex flight operations, maintain engines, manage radar systems, and keep the enormous vessel functioning. When a carrier is struck, the battle does not end with the impact. In many ways, it is only beginning. Within seconds, damage control teams rush into action. These crews are specially trained to fight fires, seal flooded compartments, contain explosions, and stabilize the ship's structure under combat conditions. Naval damage control has long been one of the most critical skills in maritime warfare. Throughout history, ships that survived devastating attacks often did so because their crews were able to react quickly and decisively. Technology plays a role, but in the end, the survivability of a warship often depends on something far more human. Discipline, coordination, and the ability of thousands of individuals to work together under extreme pressure. According to early reports, the strike was not a single attack. It was a coordinated assault designed to overwhelm the carrier's defenses. Modern carrier strike groups rely on multiple layers of protection. Radar systems scan hundreds of kilometers of airspace. Escort ships carry interceptor missiles. Fighter jets patrol the skies above the fleet. Together, these systems form one of the most advanced defensive networks ever deployed at sea. But the attack reportedly exploited a critical weakness in that system. It came from multiple directions at the same time. Ballistic missiles approached at extreme speed from high altitude, forcing the carrier group's defenses to launch interceptors and track fast-moving targets descending toward the fleet. While those systems were engaged, waves of drones reportedly approached at lower altitudes, flying beneath radar coverage and probing for openings in the defensive shield. This kind of multi-vector saturation attack has long been studied by military planners. The idea is simple, but dangerous. Present so many different threats at once that defensive systems become overloaded, forcing commanders to divide their attention and resources. Even the most sophisticated defenses can struggle under that pressure. And as missile and drone technologies continue to evolve, saturation attacks like this are becoming one of the defining challenges of modern naval warfare. For decades, naval strategy has been built around a powerful assumption that an aircraft carrier protected by its strike group was nearly impossible to hit. Carrier strike groups operate within a layered defensive shield designed to detect and destroy threats long before they reach the ship itself. Long-range radar systems scan the skies for incoming missiles. Escort destroyers and cruisers launch interceptor missiles to destroy threats at distance. Closer to the fleet, additional defenses stand ready to engage anything that slips through. And at the final line of defense, close-in weapon systems, rapid-fire cannons, and short-range missiles are designed to destroy incoming targets just seconds before impact. For decades, this multi-layered system reinforced the belief that a carrier was effectively invulnerable in combat. But modern warfare is beginning to test that assumption. Saturation attacks using large numbers of missiles and drones can create moments where defensive systems are forced to respond to multiple threats simultaneously. In those brief windows, small gaps can appear between layers of protection, and those gaps can be exploited. Even if a carrier survives such an attack, the mere fact that it can be successfully targeted changes something important. It challenges one of the longest-standing beliefs in modern naval warfare. And once the myth of the invulnerable carrier begins to fade, military planners around the world must start asking a difficult question. What role should these massive warships play in the wars of the future? Across the world, military planners began watching the reports closely because the implications of a successful strike on a U.S. aircraft carrier extend far beyond a single battlefield. In China, analysts are likely examining the event with particular interest. For years, Beijing has invested heavily in developing anti-ship ballistic missiles specifically designed to threaten American carrier strike groups operating in the Pacific. Weapons, often referred to as carrier killers, were built around the idea that large naval platforms could be targeted at long range. Now, any real-world example of a carrier under attack provides valuable data. Russia and other major military powers are also studying the incident, evaluating how modern missiles and drone systems might challenge traditional naval defenses. But the reaction is not limited to potential adversaries. Many U.S. allies depend on American carrier groups as a visible guarantee of security. These warships often serve as the most immediate symbol of U.S. commitment during regional crisis. If the perception of carrier invulnerability begins to weaken, it could influence how allies think about their own defense strategies, and it may accelerate a broader shift already underway in military planning. The growing emphasis on anti-access and area denial strategies designed to keep powerful fleets at a distance. In Washington, the reported strike immediately triggered a wave of urgent debate. When an aircraft carrier is targeted, the question is never only about the damage. It is about what happens next. Inside the Pentagon and across the U.S. government, officials must now weigh a series of difficult choices. One path leads toward escalation, expanding military operations to reassert deterrence and demonstrate that such attacks will carry serious consequences. Another path involves containment, preventing the confrontation from spiraling into a wider regional war that could draw in additional countries and disrupt global energy route. At the same time, diplomatic channels often begin working quietly behind the scenes. Even in the middle of conflict, governments sometimes explore ceasefire arrangements or de-escalation efforts designed to prevent further escalation. But whatever decisions emerge in the coming days, one reality is already clear. Events like this do not remain confined to a single battle. They force military planners to rethink doctrines, defensive systems, and operational strategies built over decades. Because if the assumptions surrounding carrier warfare are beginning to change, the consequences will extend far beyond this conflict. They may reshape how naval power is used and challenged for years to come.